Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Art 196, Introduction to Designing Web Graphics for the Spring Semester 2022. We're finishing up Lesson 6 today, hopefully, without too many missteps. For those of you who are wondering where the last couple of my recordings are for this semester is that I flubbed. So I did put recordings from last semester into our current playlist, so you can watch those. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me and ask me. Anyway, on Tuesday, I forgot to turn the recording back on, and it was just past couple of times have been difficult. What can I say? Anyway, we're going to finish lesson 6 today. And so it may end before 11, at 11, I don't know. And next week, we will work on lesson 7. When we complete lesson 7, you will publish it. And I will assume you've done lessons 1 through 6. What I can do this next week, next week we'll probably, on Thursday, we won't have a webinar, but we will on Tuesday. So what I may do on Tuesday is show you how to create an account and go for, it's either infinityfree.net, or you can also try 000webhost.com. They both provide hosting services for you for free to post and publish your websites. No cost to you. The only downside is that at the top of your pages, there's an ad for them. So, you know, it's a good way to test a website, and that's what we're doing for this class. So there's no out-of-pocket money for any of you. Okay, so where we left off, we finished the nav bar. We also did the header. And now what we're doing is we're styling the left and the right side and the main article to get that completed. Next week, what we will be doing is we will be working on this so that it's compatible for small screens. We're going to add a media query to this. It's already compatible, but we will make it look better. You'll see for a really teeny tiny screen that green awareness and action goes to 2 lines, and we'll change some features there. We'll probably change the size of the fern a little bit, and we're going to do a few other things. Okay, but it involves adding a media query. As I mentioned on Tuesday, and again, there's no recording of it, but if you recall, when I scaled it down for a smartphone, the little hamburger symbol disappeared. So somehow I had inadvertently deleted some code. And it's a div tag under here, under, let's see. It's this div right here where it goes to, would be container. It's the nav class default all the way to the div down here. So I think it was class container fluid, and where it ended was here with the nav bar under false for the collapsible aspect of it. How I deleted it, I don't know. Normally that just stays put. Anyway, you need to be careful. And fortunately, they do provide end files for us. So at any point, if you do run into difficulties, you can always refer to it and look at the code and see maybe where you've gone wrong. Or as I did, you just do it again and then make comparisons and see. Okay, so next step is that we're going to put placeholders in for the main article. And then we'll work on the right side and get that working. And then that will probably put an end to it today. Although we will be adding working with some text to add a custom font for our website. So if we look over here to the right, I'm going to be able to select inside here. And I want to make sure that I am selecting the article and not the left side. I just want to look at the DOM over to the right and make sure that the article itself is selected. Now you can see that the main row is selected, but I want, I'm going to close the aside and I want to make sure that the article is selected. So now I can go ahead and I can click inside the main article. It's editable and selectable. And now what I want to do is I'm going to insert, and I want HTML. I can do it this way, and we're going to insert an H2 tag. Okie doke. And nope, my mistake. We're going to insert an H1 tag. So indicating that this is the most important element in here. And I want it to be nested inside that. Okay, so again, nested inside that invisible div there. And you can see that it puts it inside there. It's really kind of narrow, but we are going to configure the asides and the main article. So in fact, it is wider since that's the main content here. Okay, so instead of this content is for layout H1, we're going to put in here, we're going to put insert main heading here. Okay, so I'm just highlighting it, and with the orange box around it, it lets you know that that is editable. And with the text highlighted, that placeholder text, notice that in the code view, I can either put it here, I can either do it in code view, or I can do it in live view. It doesn't matter. So insert main heading here. And then what we want to have is placeholder for the sub heading and the main content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit the return key. When I do that, it automatically adds a paragraph tag. And then I'll go ahead and I'm going to type insert subheading here. And then I'm going to hit the return key again. And I'm going to type insert content here. Excuse me. Okie doke. So at the moment, that's all we need to do. As I said, we are going to reconfigure the size of these shortly. But at the moment, what we're going to do is now we're going to create a custom class for the right side, and then place a little bit of placeholder content in it. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of selecting anything inside the main article, I'm going to go ahead and select the second aside. And you can see that it's selected now. So the DOM helps us to select elements that otherwise remain kind of invisible. So what I want to do first is we're going to create a custom class to make it even more specific than this aside. Remember when I created, if we go back to our CSS designer on Tuesday, when I created the aside, it affected, and I added the top border and the bottom border, it added it to both because that's fairly generic for a side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom class so that if we wish, we can affect both asides or just one or the other. So now what I want to do is I'm going to hit the little plus here, and I'm going to add a class to that. Come on, select the plus. And I want it to be dot sidebar two. And sidebar two is all one. Okay. There we go. So now I have that. Let's see if it pops up over here. So I'm going to select green styles and I'm going to type in here dot sidebar two. Nothing has been added yet. So I need to do that myself. Okay. So what we want to do is we're going to change the background color of it. Do you have to? No. But the point is that if you want to customize individual elements, then you have to create even more specific classes that allow you to control just those areas and nothing else. So using the cascade principle, if you use a general kind of style, it applies to everything. And then the more specific you get with additional classes, like the one that we did for the start, okay, selecting that, remember we used logo white so that inside that span tag, anything else, that's the only way we could add white to that. So let's come back here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom class for it. So I'm going to hit under, make sure that green styles is selected, global is selected, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the little plus sign here. So what I want to do is I'm going to select it and make it dot sidebar two and hit the return key twice. And now when I select in here, it should highlight in blue, which it does. Excuse me. Okay, so now we're ready to change a few properties. And what I want to do is I want to change the background color. And it's going to be, let's go ahead here, background color. It's going to be FFC, or CFC, sorry. CFC. It's kind of a light, kind of lime green color. So I'll go ahead and click off of here. And that is wrong. So I need to go back and let's check that again. It's sidebar two. Did I type it right? Let's go ahead again and I'll delete it. Again, it's starting off not so good, huh? So let me go ahead and, oh, you know why? I told you I'm a terrible typist and I'm a terrible proofreader. I'm looking on my screen right now and I put sidebar two. I didn't add the R. So I'm going to go ahead and click in there and add the R. Okay. And then I already have it over here. Apply that. Now the green works. So as you can see, yeah, there you go. Thank you, Julie. You have to be really, really careful. And oftentimes as I'm talking to you, you know, I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I overlook some of those very simple things. So you have to be mindful at all times of what you're doing in here, because a simple misspelling, a simple space where you don't want a space or vice versa can mean the difference between everything working and nothing working. Okay, so now we're going to add some padding to this. So I'll come back to the layout and go down to margins. And we're going to use a shorthand. So on the top and the bottom, we want 0, but on the left and the right, we want 10 pixels. So I'm going to put a 0 px. I'm going to put space and I'm going to put 10 pixels. Otherwise, if you don't add any padding, what happens is that when you apply text, it will go all the way to the borders and will touch the edge. In web design, you really need a fair amount of negative space around background space around the text for the viewers to see the and read the text pretty clearly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a separate H2 tag. We had one up here. We're going to have a separate one here for the aside. So I'm going to go ahead again and create a new selector for it. And it's going to be sidebar to space H2 tag. So that's our H2 selector. And now for that, what we're going to do is the top and bottom margins are going to be, or the top margin is going to be 10 pixels. So let's go up to margins and I'll put 10. Bottom is going to be 5. So there's a little bit less space, but then when you add text, it will add up to 10 for the top and the bottom. And then that was for the margins. So I'm done with that. Hit the tab key. Then the padding is going to be 0 and 10 again. So 0, we'll just do it in here, 0 px. Oh, come on. 0 px and 10 pixels. 10 pixels is a pretty good amount to begin with for padding. I tend to use a bit more than that. And then what we also want to do is we want to specify for the H2 tag a little bit larger type. So we're going to go back here and under type or font size, style, font size, we're going to put in here percentage. And most of the time type is measured on web design in percentages, so that depending on the screen that you view it on, it will be a percentage rather than a fixed size, and it will look better as a percentage than on a small screen with maybe some large type or small type on a large screen. So that's how that works. So the line height or size rather, I'm going to go ahead and put 130%, 130. And for the line height, which is, for those of you who are familiar with print and working with type in print, it's equivalent to leading. So that's your line height. And we're going to put 1.4 M's. And again, an M is kind of like a percentage. It's actually a relative size based on the font size that you have. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use this in M's, and we want it to be 1.4. 1.4. There we go. Okay, so already we're seeing some changes in here. The next thing that we're going to do is with the right aside selected, I'm going to insert. So let's go back to insert, and I'm going to, with HTML, I'm going to insert a heading 2. So let's click here. I don't want a heading 1, I want a heading 2. Okay. Is it in there or not? Let's see. Let's go ahead and try again. There we go. So I want it nested. You can see here the placeholder for it. So we'll put in here, we'll highlight it, and we're going to put insert, sidebar heading here. There we go. Now I can go ahead and I can hit the return key. And what we're going to do is we're going to add just some simple text here. So it automatically added a paragraph tag. So I'm going to put in here, insert sidebar content here. And notice how, because we haven't specified for a P tag, it butts right up against the edge, like I mentioned. So what we're going to do now is, since I've already added that paragraph tag, we're going to go back over to the CSS designer and we're going to add a selector for that. So again, I'm going to add the plus sign and I don't want it to be dot. Sidebar to remember that all classes start with a period or a dot, whatever you want to call it. So sidebar 2, and again, there's no space between sidebar and 2. And then there is a space, and then I add P for a paragraph tag. Hit the return key twice. And now what I want to do is we're going to customize it and change its properties. So for it, we want margin bottom 5 pixels. So let's come up here. Let's look at the layout. And we want, as I said, margin bottom 5 pixels. And what we want here is padding. Again, this will push it over and we're going to use the shorthand method. 0 pixels for top and bottom, but we want 10 pixels left and right. So 0 pixels. I didn't do it right. Let me go back again. 0 and then 10 pixels. There we go. Notice how it just pushed that in just a little bit. It's just enough. I typically like 15 to 20 pixels. It doesn't hurt to have too much space around it. It really doesn't. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to manage the Bootstrap width. Because right now, if you recall in Bootstrap, you may have a single column. We have 3 columns, but the width of those needs to add up to 12 units. So with a single column, it's automatically 12 units. Since we subdivided this row into 3 columns, we set up the default is 4 units, 4 units, and 4 units. Well, what we're going to do now, which is a little bit different, is we're going to specify here. Let's start with the left side. Okay. Right now, do you see how it says 4? Well, we're going to reduce that. I'm going to click inside there. Let me undo what I just did. I want to click in here. And instead of 4, I'm going to put 3. Okay. And notice how everything shifted over. And now I'm going to, for the main content, no, I don't want that selected. I'm going to go down to my selector. I'm going to select the article. There we go. Again, how that is 4 units. I'm going to push that up to 6 units. Click on there, hit 6. And again, hit the tab key. And now to notice what happens, because I had 3, 6, that's 9, plus 4 comes up to 13. It can't fit all of that on the single row, so it pushes it down. But now what we can do with the right side is, again, where it says 4, I'm going to change that to 3. Hit the tab key, and now it all fits. And now we have an adequate, a substantial size for our main article. Now, if you were designing this in a 2-column format, we could get rid of the right side or the left, doesn't matter. And then you would probably want it to fit, have it 4 and 8 units to fit the 12. And that's what I've done on my own personal website. Okay. Before I go any further with this, I'm going to make sure that I save it all. And now what we're going to do is we're going to work with some HTML entities. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to work with a footer, and then we're going to switch and we're going to go back to the main content, and understand with adding a body tag, we're going to create a different font family for us. And then we'll probably call it a day. Let's see where I was going with that. So let's go ahead and work on the footer. Let's go down here. There's the footer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some elements to that. Okie doke. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm just going to go ahead and add the plus sign, and I can put in footer, the return key twice. And now under the background color, let's go ahead here. Let's add padding first. And under layout and padding, I'm going to go ahead down here and we're going to use 1M and then 0 pixels. So again, using the shorthand method, 1M space and 0 pixels. There we go. And that fattens it up a little bit. The background color is going to be 090, which is the same green that we used up there. So come down here, use the hexadecimal. You need the pound sign in front, or the hashtag Octothorpe is what its original name was. 090. Now it fills the background color. Now we can go ahead and for the color of the type, we want to use the same color that we used for the initial color for our nav bar. So under type, I'm going to go ahead and color for it. I'm going to go ahead and click. I'm going to select that light yellow. Now we don't have anything there yet. So what I can do, and later on they want us to select the background image, and we're going to use, you can use the gradient color picker if you wish to style it a bit. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to put in some type for right now. And I'm going to put in, they want us to use the copyright sign. So copyright, I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to come back here. I'm just going to highlight what they put in, copy it, and then come back to mine here. And click inside here and make sure that I have a P tag. So I'm going to go ahead and insert HTML. I don't want a heading 2. I want a paragraph right there. There we go. There we go. So I'll highlight that and I will paste. So I'm going to get rid of that other paragraph. I'm just going to highlight that paragraph, get rid of it, and I'm good to go. Again, if you want to add the gradient that goes in the back, you can, or if you feel that it looks just as good without the gradient, which I think it looks better without it, I'm going to leave it as is. So the next thing, we're going to use Edge web fonts for everything. And then we will be able to wrap this up. Okay, so let's go to CSS Designer. Look in here. Make sure that I have green styles selected, global. And now what we're going to do is we're going to affect the entire body. Since the body tag is at the very base, it's the thing that contains everything on the meat part of our page. Well, what we can do is, let me go ahead and I'm going to create a new selector here and just name it body. Okay, so this, everything will in here will be affected by this unless you specify otherwise. So what I want to do under text is I want to look at the font family. And when I do that, you'll see that we can manage fonts from here. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to my font, manage fonts. And this is really quite nice. If we look at the top here, this is, which of these sans serif fonts or the more decorative fonts work for headings. So if I click on that, it narrows the selection. If I select both for heading, heading tags and copy, this is the only one. So that's the one that we're going to add. We're going to add sans source. We're going to go ahead and add source sans pro. Okay. So I'm going to go back again and go under our font family. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to create a new font family for that. So I want to create a custom font stack. So at the top of the list is going to be the Sans Source Pro or Source Sans Pro, whichever it was. Yeah, Source Sans Pro. Here's Source Sans Pro. So if I select that and I click this left arrow, it adds it to my new font stack. Notice that we have other font stacks here. And if you're wondering why we have font stacks, it's because the font that you choose for your web pages or fonts that you choose are rendered on the end user's computer. And more often than not, it will depend on what fonts they have in their computer that will determine how your page is rendered. There are some fonts that are more generic than others. Others that they tell us to use will not be available on everybody's computer. So we're going to start with the Sans Source or Source Sans Pro, and then we're going to begin by adding some others to it. And what it does is that when the user downloads the page on their computer, it will look for Source Sans Pro first. And if it can't find it, then it will go to the next one in the font stack. And then if it can't find that, we'll go to the next one. At the very end, you usually have a generic sans serif or serif typeface. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to build the font stack with this. So we're going to specify our fonts, and then we'll go ahead under, again, under the body tag, we're going to use the basic, we'll change the type size too, so it'll be a little bit larger. 14 point, by the way, for body copy is the default size. Okay. So the next one that we're going to select here, and they've already put it on page 190 of the textbook, and I'm just going to type it in here to find it, is Trebuchet. So we'll go ahead and we'll add that to our font stack. And then we want, that was, yeah, Trebuchet MS. And then we want Verdana. For a long time, I liked Verdana a lot. It's a typeface that was designed specifically for the web. Source Code Pro is as well. It's Source Sans Pro, what it should be. And then we're going to use Arial, will be the next one. Arial is another common sans serif typeface. And then the last one, or the next to the last, should be Helvetica. Arial is really kind of a bastardization of Helvetica. We'll add that to our font stack. And then the last one will be just sans serif. So if they don't have any of these, and it's, they'll just pick whatever sans serif typeface that they do have. So we can go ahead and select done. We have our new font family or font stack. So this is the one that we just created. I'm going to select that. for our body, and it should have changed everything just a little bit. Okay, so that's our font family. There we go. So the next thing that we're going to do is under type, we're going to select font size, and we're going to select under the body tag, we're going to select 14 pixels. Okay. There we go. 14 pixels. So the size gets adjusted a little bit. Anything else that we need to do on here? Oh, we are going to go ahead and we're going to add one. Instead of the type that we've chosen for our heading here, we're going to change that here. We're going to go main.row article H1, and we're going to change the margin for it. We're going to change the font family to Padua 1. And but oftentimes when you render that in a browser, it doesn't pop up because the computer that you're working on doesn't have it. But it's kind of nice to see anyway. Okay. So, and then that will pretty much it. Let's see. What else do we have here? Grain styles. We also have one for the main block quote, and we want to make sure that the font size is 100% and the border is none. So all these little things that we're changing here. Font size. That because they kind of do it out of order, I forget about it. So let's do the one for the main heading. Okay, so I'm going to come back here. We're in global, and we're going to create a new selector for it. And it's going to be, let's see, main.row space article hope I got that spelled right. Article. There we go. Space H1. So this is going to directly affect only the H1 tag inside our article here. Any H1 tag anywhere else, it will not be affected. So again, we're going to go to margins, and we're going to say the top is 0. The bottom is 15 pixels. Okay. And then what we're going to do is the font family is going to be Padua 1. So let's go to type. Let's go to font family. And I already added it, Padua 1. Notice that it's kind of a slab serif, block serif there. Then we want font size to be 100%. Or percentage. And when that happens, that's a good thing. Say, oh, shoot, where did my headline go? Because it defaults to 0%. And now I know that it's affecting it. The selector that I had created. Now it says 100%. Font size. That's not right. So something's wrong. I have my H1 tag, 100%. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's 300%. See, I can't read either. There we go. I thought something was off here. 300%. There we go. That looks much better. And then the line height is 1M. So now we want the line, not weight, but we want the line height. Click on there. We want 1M. Okie doke. There's a couple of other things that we want to do. It says in the green styles and the main row aside, we want to make sure that the font size is set a little bit smaller to 95%. So if we come back in here and I'm going to look for the rule, and it will be main dot row. And here is the main dot row aside. Under type, under line or type size, we're going to do it in percentages. And we want it to be 95%. So it's a little bit smaller than the main body copy that we have here. Just a little bit smaller. And then after that, what we want to do for block quotes. So we're going to go ahead and create a, for the main dot row aside block quote, we're going to change the font size for its properties a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead again and main dot row block quote. So we've got that selected now. It's highlighted in blue, and we're going to change the font size for it. And this I will put in is 100%. And make sure that the border is set to none. If you like a border, then you would probably want one just on the left side, which I've done on my own web page. So under border, we're going to select none. Okay, so because by default it has one. And just to show you what I'm talking about, not that it's that critical. But if we go back and we look here and we look under, let's go to my about page and see if we, one. Where I have a block quote here. Why is it taking so long to download the page? Okay, well, maybe I won't. If it pops up before we end today, then fine. So I hope everything has gone pretty smoothly today. At least we finished this part and tidied up a few things for us. If you go back to the lessons that I've recorded and have any questions about the header or about the nav bar is really critical. That's why I say you need to, and I haven't been doing that, is keep testing to make sure everything works. And when it slides down to a smartphone or a small tablet, make sure that the hamburger symbol appears. Okay. As I said, this is what I had done here. Now, if I scroll down, where is a quote here? I don't have a quote there. Let's go to resume. There we go. Where I have absurdist objects, Samuel Beckett. This is an example of a block quote. And here's the site tag for Samuel Beckett. And you'll notice to the left in that block quote, I have a left border here. I kind of like that look, but again, you don't need that. That's usually a kind of a default that exists. So when I'm saving this, make sure that you go back in and you say, for our lesson, say File, Save All. Okay. Because if you don't, it will not save the CSS. And if you've added any properties to the Bootstrap CSS, change those won't be saved either. It will save the page, but it won't save those. And when you open your file back up later, it will be a mess. Okie doke. So you have to go back and redo some of it. So that's all the time we have for today. I hope this has been helpful to you, those of you who are here. And we'll go ahead and, as I said, we're going to start working on lesson 7 next Tuesday. Next Thursday, I'm canceling our webinar. So hopefully we will get most of the next assignment done. The next assignment is easy to goof up, but just to give you kind of a heads up, is that when you go down to a smaller page, notice that it just gets smaller, but then when it gets really small, notice what happens, because pages load from left to right, top to bottom. So for our nav bar, it loads correctly. The header loads correctly, but then the next thing that loads is the left aside, and then our main content, and then our right aside, and then our footer. What we're going to do is change it so that on a large screen, it will read just as we see it here, okay, in this order. But when it switches to a small screen or on a smartphone, that in fact, the article will read first, and then the left aside, and then the right aside. And it will even change for a smart or a small screen. So instead of 3 columns, it will, on a small screen, go to 2 columns. The right aside will be 8 units, and the main content will be 8 units. So even on a small screen, you have a total of 12 units. But that's what we're going to do in lesson 7. And then I'll show you how to publish it, and we'll be moving on to the next series of lessons. And by that time too, you should be done with your Wix website. A couple of people have turned theirs in. A couple of people have questions about their website. And then after we have published lesson 7, we're going to move on to lesson 8, which covers templates. Lesson 9, 10, and 11 cover different ways of adding content. And then lesson 12 is sort of optional, which offers interactivity. I will be showing you a different way of adding interactivity. We'll be using a slideshow, one that I've used on my own websites. It's, what is it? Let me come back here. Let's go to one of these. Wow sliders, which are free. And then also at the same time, we will be learning how to use a Mobirise web builder and build that on your computer, and then we'll upload that and publish it. Okay, so that's what's in store for us next. Okay, any questions before we leave today? Before I stop my recording? No? We're good? Today went better than Tuesday, at least. But that happens from time to time. Okay, then. Well, everybody have a good weekend. I'll see you Tuesday, but I won't see you Thursday. Okay? Yeah, have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.